Okay, in this class we'll learn about BDC. BDC means
Batch data
batch data
conversion.
Conversion.
Communication or conversion. Okay, batch data conversion. What do you mean by batch data? Batch data or batch process? Do you have any idea what is batch data or batch process?
Instead of manual entering the data, recording the screen processing.
Okay. So batch data means, for example, some historical data. Let's say there is a company TCS, or not TCS, Tata Group. They are using some third-party systems to manage their data. Okay, like some Java or Microsoft .NET based systems to manage their data, and they are saving their data in some database, right? They are using some non-SAP applications as of now. And now they plan to move, they wanted to migrate all their non-SAP systems into SAP ERP. They want to run their business on SAP ERP because ERP provides better integration between different departments, right? And ERP products improve the business efficiency, right? It reduces the communication delay between different departments so that there will be more productivity. Okay, so all this we discussed in our initial classes, what is ERP and how it is helpful for the any business. So in our example, Tata Group wanted to move their business into SAP ERP. As of now, they are using some non-SAP systems. Okay, for example, this is for HR, this is for sales, and this is for finance. Okay, and there is one more system for let's take these three systems. Let's assume these are non-SAP systems. Every system should have a database, right? Without database we cannot store the data. So let's assume this is some database, Oracle or Microsoft SQL database. When you are using these systems, what will happen? When you create or change data, those records are going to store in a database, right?
Yes.
So over the years, for example, they are using these systems from past 10 years. Maybe past 20 years. They are using these systems from the past 20 years. So what can you expect in this database? The data records of past 20 years, right?
Yes.
The records which are created from the past 20 years are going to store in this database, right? These are non-SAP systems. Non-SAP means other systems. Now,
Okay.
instead of maintaining these different systems for different departments, they wanted to implement SAP ERP in their business so that they can integrate the all departments. They'll have a single source of truth, a single software which can run their entire business. Okay, they wanted to replace with the SAP. SAP ERP, right? So what is the volume of data in this database from the past 20 years data, right?
Yes.
Usually no one is going to maintain 20 years, 30 years data in their databases because it is not possible to maintain that much data, okay, in the database or the system over the years. So when you start using your phone, even it might be a 128 GB phone, in the initial days you'll be having 100 GB of space. Once you start using it after 1 year, even that 128 GB also occupied, right? If you don't
Yes.
maintain it, even that 128 or 250 GB data also not enough for you if you don't maintain it, if you don't remove the unnecessary data and unnecessary files from your phone, right? So in companies also, they won't maintain 20-30 years data in their systems. These are OLTP systems. They maintain operational data in the OLTP systems, maybe last 5 years data, maximum last 5 years data. Remaining data, they archive it. What is archive? They'll take a backup. They'll take a backup of the data and they'll remove that data from the system. Okay. So they'll take a backup and they'll remove that past 5 years data. Not okay. They'll keep only past 5 years data and remove everything to save some space and to make it easy to maintain the systems, OLTP systems. Okay. So for example, now they are moving these non-SAP systems, they are replacing with the SAP ERP, right? When you buy the SAP, what can you find in that product?
Yeah, to
Nothing. It's nothing. They'll just provide a product. It contains application server, presentation server, and database server. Do you have any data in the database server when you first buy the SAP software?
No.
No, it's empty because you are not start using it, right? You are not yet
Yes.
implemented in your business, and your business transactions are not running on the SAP ERP. Those are still running on the non-SAP systems. So when you buy the SAP and when you implement it in your company, you cannot find any data in the tables. You have to create the data. Okay. So now where is your operational or business data? Where is it now?
RERP.
For example, last 5 years data is the operational data for our company, for the Tata Group. But where the data is resides?
Backup.
In these third-party databases, right? Non-SAP system databases, right?
Yes.
But they want to run their business using those last 5 years data. What we have to do? We have to migrate. We have to migrate all this non-SAP data into SAP, into corresponding tables of SAP. For HR, we have different set of tables. For sales, we have different set of tables, right? What are the tables for sales and distribution?
VA0.
VBAK, VBAP.
VA01 is not a table, it's a transaction code. VBAK, VBAP, these are the tables. Okay.
Okay.
So once you implement SAP in your business, what is the first step you have to do? You have to migrate all the non-SAP systems data into SAP. Okay. But how can you do that? For example, there is sales data. How to create the sales order? How to create a sales order in SAP?
VA0.
Go to VA01. Go to VA01 and create the sales order. Select the order type, sales organization, distribution channel, and create the sales order. So in sales data, so what is the operational data here in our example? Last 5 years data, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
If you take Tata Group as example, how many sales orders you can find for the past 5 years?
depends on their business.
Maybe is it in hundreds, thousands, or lakhs?
Maybe 100, for example.
See, sales order means when they sell something, they'll create a sale order, right?
Yes.
If you take Tata cars, how many cars they sell every day? Let's take 100. Every day they are creating 100 sale orders in Tata cars. If you go to Chroma, what they sell? Electronics, right? How many electronic goods they sell every day? It's in thousands. Every day they create thousands of sales orders. Similarly, they have many companies, right? So they are going to generate thousands of sales orders every day. For a year, it might be in lakhs. If you take 5 years into 5, certainly it's in lakhs. Is it possible to manually create all those existing sales orders in SAP by going to
No.
VA01 transaction?
It is
No, sir.
difficult.
It is difficult, right? Who are going to create lakhs of sales orders? How is it possible? It is not possible. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you go to HR records, same. Over the years, we'll be having lakhs of records. It is not possible to manually create those records in all the tables. Finance data also, it is not possible to create manually. So for that, SAP has a solution, that is BDC. Okay. SAP has a solution, that is BDC. What is BDC? Batch data communication. What is batch data? Batch data means this bulk data which is created over the period. Okay. What are we doing here? We are converting this batch data into SAP data. This batch data, batch means bulk data, very large set of data. Okay. That means batch. So what do you mean by batch? Batch means a group, right? So all the HR data should be stored in HR related tables. All the sales order related data is going to store in sales order related tables. All the finance related data should be stored in a finance related table. So what they'll actually do, they are going to copy, they are going to download the sales data into some Excel file or some text file. Okay. They are going to copy all those database records into an Excel file. Okay. Now what we have to do? We have to upload this Excel file into we need to write a BDC program. So what this BDC program should do?
So
Recording.
This BDC program should create or insert data into SAP, into the corresponding tables. Okay. What it follows? It follows the T code process. How we are creating a sales order in general? How you are going to create a sales order?
by using transaction code and sales order.
Go to SAP, open the VA01 transaction and enter the details
Order details.
and provide the data here. Provide the item, material number, order quantity, description, etc. Filling all these details and click on save. When I click on save, that record will be stored in relevant SAP tables, right?
Yes.
Similarly, BDC also do the same process. How we are doing it manually, it is going to automate the process. Okay, it's like robot. Once you programmed it, it is going to click everything. It is going to fill the data. It is going to click on save. The screen process, right? It is going to simulate that screen process. Okay. Okay. So whatever the work we are doing manually, it is using the records available in Excel file or text file, and it's going to loop that process. First time, first sales order record will be created. Second time, second sales order record, because we are passing these lakhs of records in a file. We are downloading the data from the database and we are uploading that file into SAP, and we are passing that data to BDC program. What BDC program will do? By using each record data, it's going to create a new sales order. Okay, like it is going to execute VA01 and it's going to populate the data and it's going to click on save. Then sales order record will be created. The same steps will be repeated until there are records in the internal table. Okay, clear? So BDC is used to migrate non-SAP data into SAP. Okay. We can also call this as data migration. Okay. We can also call this as data migration. We have another alternative for BAPI. Sorry, for BDC, that is BAPI. I'll mention this here. So BAPI is nothing but a function module. For each process, SAP has provided BAPIs for most of the business process to create the sales order, to create the purchase order, to create the material. SAP provided a BAPI function modules. They are just function modules. Instead of calling the BDC program, you can also use BAPI. Okay, BAPI is nothing but a function module. Okay, but what is the main difference? When you are working with BDC programs, you are working on screen processing. How we are doing it manually, you are just simulating the process, right? That is BDC. So it's going to open the screen, it's going to execute the transaction code, and it's going to open the screen, and it's going to fill up the data, and it's going to click on save. That is BDC. What is BAPI? BAPI will directly update the relevant database tables. Okay. Here you have to follow the screen process. You have to enter the data in the screens and you have to click on save. But when you are using BAPI, it's not going through the screen processing. It will directly update the relevant database tables. What are the relevant database tables for VA01? VBAK, VBAP, VBRK, VBRP. These are the sales related tables. When you are using BAPI function modules, they will directly update the tables. Okay. So when you have BDC and when we have BAPI, we have a BAPI function module available. Which process you have to follow? What is the preferable process or preferable method? So we have BDC programming to create data in SAP, and also SAP has provided a BAPI function module for the same purpose, to create the sales order data in SAP. Which one we should prefer? Is it BDC or BAPI?
Web.
So we should prefer BAPI because it is not following any screen processing and there is no delay. BAPI will perform all the necessary validations and directly update the database tables. Okay, but what is BDC?
Screen
BDC is a
recording
screen
process.
processing. Whatever the process you are manually doing, you are just simulating that process. Okay, you are just automating that process. Correct? Is it clear?
Okay.
But what is BAPI? BAPI is not screen processing. It will take the data and directly update the relevant backend database tables. Okay. Okay. But then we are saying that BAPI is the preferable method, but why we are going for BDC? So we don't have BAPI for all purpose, all the scenarios. We don't have BAPI function modules for all the scenarios. So in some cases, we have to go by BDC programming only. Okay. By using BDC programming, you can automate anything. Whatever the process you are doing in SC38, doing in SAP, you can automate it using BDC programming. Okay. What we do in BDC programming, we record the steps. We record the steps, how we are doing it manually. And then we automate that steps. Right?
We'll continue until the end.
We automate same steps for every record. Okay. Transaction code for screen recording is SHTV. Okay. In BDC, we have two different methods. That is
Selection method, session method.
call transaction, session,
Session.
session. call transaction
Session.
method and session method. Okay. So if you take call transaction and session methods, we have two different methods, right? When we use call transaction and when we use session in BDC programming, we have two methods. Recording is common for both. Screen recording is common for both call transaction and session methods. But when we go for call transaction and when we go for session method, for example, if we have fewer records like 10,000, 20,000 records to be uploaded into SAP, we can go for call transaction method. It is faster and simple. Okay, it will update each record immediately. It will update or create each record immediately when you are using call transaction. But when you go for session, we use session methods for large set of data. Large set of data. What will happen in session method? It is not going to create the records immediately. It is going to create a session with all the records, and then we have to process that session. Once session got processed, then all the records going to be created in the database. Okay, clear? For example, when you are using call transaction, there are 10,000 records in a file and we uploaded that file into SAP, and in few records are incorrect. Few records values are missing. Those are mandatory values. What will happen? Call transaction is not going to stop its processing. It will just reject those records and continue with the further processing. Okay. So out of 10,000 records, if there are 4 error records, it will stop only those 4 error records and it will create the remaining 9,000 plus records. But when you go for session method, when you are processing 10,000 records, it will successfully post or successfully create all the records in SAP only when all the records are successful. If there is at least one error in any of the record, it is not going to process any records. Okay, first we have to correct those error records and then we have to reprocess the session. There is some delay, right?
Yes.
For one error record, it's going to stop everything. But what is call transaction?
Only
We
that
call it as asynchronous. We call it as asynchronous processing. Call transaction follows which processing?
asynchronous.
Synchronize.
Asynchronous processing. It won't stop the business process for the error records. But what is session? It is synchronous. Synchronous processing. It won't complete the session until all the records are successful. Okay. Session method is slower than the call transaction. But since I am saying session method is slower than the call transaction, then why we are using session method still? What is the use of session method? They have
Here,
their own advantages.
Creating all records from that letter.
Call transaction does not have proper error handling techniques. No implicit error handling. We have to handle the errors. For that, we have to write some additional code. Okay. Clear? I'm saying that call transaction is faster than the session method. And still why we go for session method in some cases? Why we go for session method? because we don't have implicit error handling in call transaction. We have to write additional code using this structure, BDC MSG COL structure, to handle the errors. Implicit means include. It's not part of the error handling, is not part of the call transaction. Okay. So call transaction follows asynchronous data processing. What is asynchronous data processing? It won't stop the process for error records. Okay. It will continue with the success records and keep a track of error records using BDC MSG COL structure. It is explicit error handling. So call transaction does not contain implicit error handling. Implicit means including. No error handling included in the call transaction. We have to handle it explicitly. Extra code we have to write for error handling. Clear? Okay. So when you are using session method, it follows synchronous data processing. What do you mean by synchronous data processing?
Record by record.
It will complete the session, or it's going to create the records in SAP only after all the records are successful. Okay. So because it's going to insert all the data in SAP at once. Okay. First when you execute the program, it is not going to create data in SAP immediately. It is going to create a session. We have a separate transaction code to process that session. When you process that session, all the records should be successful. If there is any one error record, it's not going to create the data in SAP. You should fix the data issue and then reprocess the session. Then only it's going to save that data. But when you go for call transaction, what is the data processing? Synchronous or
Don't wait
asynchronous?
for all records.
So what is the
Asynchronous.
data processing? Synchronous or asynchronous?
Asynchronous.
Asynchronous. What do you mean by asynchronous? Huh? What is the data processing of call transaction?
It is asynchronous data processing.
Asynchronous or synchronous?
Asynchronous data processing.
Asynchronous data processing. What do you mean by asynchronous? It won't wait for the next record. It will immediately create data in SAP. First record, when it is processing the first record, it will call that particular transaction code and insert that data and click on save. Data will be created. Then second record, third record, fourth record, fifth record. It's going to keep on creating the records immediately. Okay.
Okay.
It won't wait for the next record. If it is success or failure, it doesn't bother. For example, the second record does not contain proper data and there is some values are missing in the file, text file. What it will do?
Leave it.
It will skip that record and go for the third record. Okay.
Okay.
It's going to create the third record. Later, we have to collect all those error records. After program completion, we have to collect all those error records and we have to reprocess those records after fixing the data. How can you collect the errors in BDC programming? Sorry, in call transaction. How to handle
BDC
errors in call transaction? By using BDC MSGCOL structure. It's a structure. It contains fields. By using this structure, we are going to handle the errors because there is no error handling mechanism in call transaction. But we have error handling mechanism in session method. Okay, that means implicit error handling. Call transaction is explicit error handling. Session method contains implicit. Implicit means included. Explicit means
Not included.
additional logic or additional code using BDC MSG COL structure. Clear? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for most of the BDC programming, BDC programs, what is the input? For most of the BDC programs, what is the input? For example, for our report programs, what is the input? What is the input for your report programs which you have written as of now?
Putting data.
Hmm?
Data.
No, data means what is the input? How we are passing the input to the program?
Specific.
Option or parameter.
By defining parameters and select options, right?
Yes.
And we are displaying the data. But here in this case, what is the input for BDC program?
Screen processing.
Screen processing is not an input, it is a process. What is the input here? What is the input for our BDC program? Observe the diagram carefully, you can easily identify.
Excel data.
Yeah, observe this. Why I'm drawing these diagrams for your understanding only.
Excel data.
Excel file or text file which contains data.
Data.
Okay, so we are going to upload that file data into a BDC program. So here for BDC programs, data migration programs, mostly text file or Excel files are the input. So we are going to have data in a file, thousands of records, maybe lakhs of records. It is not possible to provide those lakhs of records input in parameters and select options, right?
Yes.
That's why we are taking as a file and we are going to upload that file into SAP internal table. We are going to upload that entire data into one internal table and we are going to loop that internal table, and in between that loop what we are going to do, this screen processing using BDC program. Okay, so what is our first step here? The first step is we need to know how to upload files into SAP ABAP. How to upload files into SAP ABAP internal tables. So if you take this as a file, how to upload this file into SAP? How to upload SAP files data into SAP? We can upload that into an internal table. We can upload this data into internal table with the same structure. This internal table structure should match with the file structure. Okay, the number of fields in the file should be same as internal table. Clear?
Okay.
And
So
how?
for example,
Uh,
if data is some improper, so we need to segregate the same as internal table data.
for example, we have a file with employee ID, joining date, and department. This file contains, for example, I have a text file that is employee 100. I'm using some separator, comma separator for each field.
Oh,
100 and employee name and date of join, or maybe department, SAP 200, SAP. Like this, you'll have thousands of records in this file using some comma separator, or some separator is depends on the requirement. Sometimes we use pipe separator. Pipe separator is this. Okay.
mm,
Sometimes we use this separator also. Sometimes we use comma separators because to separate the field. Now, what is your internal table structure? This is your file. What is your internal table structure? Your internal table structure should contain 3 fields: employee ID, employee name,
apply.
and department. For this, what you have to create? You have to create a type structure with the 3 fields and define an internal table with reference to the type structure. Okay, I'll show you that. So this is the sample file, sample upload file, text file. If you take it in Excel, if you take it in Excel, the file should be like this: 100. Here we don't need separator. Okay, Excel file data is like this. Okay, now internal table structure should be same. Okay, you have to define internal table with reference to the file structure: employee ID, employee name, and department. Right? So what is the input for our program?
Text or Excel file.
A text or Excel file. What we have to do? We have to upload the text file or Excel file data into an
Hello.
internal table. Then only we can use it in the program, right? Once we
Yes.
got the data into an internal table, we can loop that internal table, right? And in between that loop and end loop, we call this call transaction method or session method to create the data in SAP, right? For each record, this process will repeat it. This process will be repeated. Okay. To upload the file into SAP, what we have to do? We have some function modules. That is, if it is a text file, you can use a GUI underscore upload function module. What is the input for this GUI underscore upload function module? File path, your system file path, F4. When you click, sorry, your system file path, that is some folder in your system. Okay, file name. Okay, that is the input. What is the output? What it is going to return? What this GUI underscore upload is going to return? It's
SAP
going to
data.
read all the data in that file and return one internal table data. Okay, clear? If you
Okay.
provide the file path to this function module, it's going to return internal table with data. Whatever the data in the file, it's going to copy into the internal table.
Internal.
If it is Excel file, we have a different function module, that is text